So moving on to question 3. The burden to sustainably manage soils is placed entirely on smallholder farmers, yet the benefits from soil use are reaped by everyone. Despite private land ownership, soils are a common good. Who should bear the responsibility for improving and maintaining soil health, and how does this become sustainable? I'll ask Dr. Kandawiri to begin.
Yeah, I want to go back to what Professor Lar suggested, and I think it's a very important point he raised on the need for ensuring that we have an understanding every so often, maybe every 5 years or even less than that, on the state of soil health in Africa. And I think this is a responsibility of government to be able to really understand to what extent are their soils degenerating. If indeed, I mean, if I may use the medical metaphor, that African soils are in the intensive care stage, but we need to demonstrate that, and let's bring that to the attention of African governments on the severity of the deterioration of the state of African soils. We need shock tactics, to present to the governments that this is actually, really a danger in eroding the sustainability of not just the agriculture sector, but also the national economies. I mean, will decline as well because of the decline nature of the health status of their soils. So that's absolutely critical for national governments to appreciate that, because it's not just the smallholder farmers that are bound to lose. It is really the country as a whole, and therefore, the governments as well as the private sector need to really be innovative and creative, and indeed, I must say, the international community as well. They need to find innovative ways, but at the entry point is precisely to shock national governments and indeed the international community that this is actually, a serious, not just a national emergency, but also a global emergency. And that's why, some of us are very delighted that we're bringing this as part of not just an African conversation, but part of a global conversation, because the global community too, whether it's in terms of fostering more training of soil scientists across Africa, or indeed investing in those successes that are on the ground and explore how they might be scaled up. So information is going to be extremely critical in ensuring that there's commitment by everybody to investing in soil health.
Dr. Lau, Dr. Lau, you're muted. Could you think of some?
I might have to leave, so I'll just make one more comment. I want to re-emphasize what Richard just said. If we could divide the continent into ecoregions, and many ecoregions will cut across the countries. For example, humid climate will be many countries, subhumid climate, mountainous climate. So we produce soil quality map every 3 years or every 5 years on the ecoregion basis, where many countries within that region are cooperating in developing that map. And we define a methodology. This map is for land use planning and management of soil quality. That's the objective. We want to find out what the trend in soil quality, soil physical properties, organic matter content, macronutrients, micronutrients, how they are changing in the root zone, at least to 50 centimeter depth, if not more. And then also develop how to overcome the soil related constraints for that region. So the map has to be at a planning scale, like 1 to 10,000 or 1 to 20,000, no more than 1 to 50,000. There is no use having a map of 1 to 10 million or 1 to that's simply a decoration piece on the wall. It's not a planning map. And that should be really a very high priority, and it should be updated every 5 years, and it should tell what are the constraints for a particular soil type to grow the specific crop that we want to grow in that region. So it's actually a tool to plan soil quality for improving productivity and nutritional quality of the continent as a whole. But it should be done on an ecoregion basis. That means many countries which ecoregion cut across. So if you were to go to FAO and say, we need your assistance, the assistance is you help us, our scientists will do the work. It will be it is the African scientists who will get the training in doing how to do survey, how to do quantification, how to do interpret the data, but provide us the standardize the methodology, any other guidance we need, additional resources required, modern equipment required, map, remote sensing, GIS, whatever. But the work should be done by African scientists themselves, who understand not only the landscape, but the culture and tradition, because biophysical and socioeconomic part both. I would say that Abuja 2 Summit should come up with that recommendation. That is our guiding tool how to improve soil quality for next 10-year, next 20-year period.
Okay, Dr. Lal, before you leave, can I take the opportunity? You talked about rewarding farmers. What mechanisms can you think of rewarding farmers? What about carbon trading, increasing soil organic matter? What are opportunities there?
I think there are two parts, which is one is carbon trading, because the entire global community will benefit if farmers can sequester carbon in soil and trees. So paying them, the question is payment, how much? And that is a very critical part. It must be the fair price, which is equal to the societal value. And what is a societal value? Societal value is if a farmer in Ghana or Zambia or wherever is sequestering 1 ton of carbon per hectare in his or her farm, it is benefiting the entire global community in climate change mitigation. So the amount of benefit that the global community gets, that the price should be paid to farmer. There are few reports which have assessed the, I published one report, Robert Costanza have published another one, European Union has another one. My report suggests the price of the carbon should be somewhere between $120 to $130 per ton of carbon, which come to about 30 to 25, 30 euro per ton of CO2. And which means if a farmer sequesters half a ton per hectare, they should be paid about $60 per hectare per year. So international community through African Development Bank, perhaps through other organization, should reward farmer in such a way that at least 90% of the money should go directly to the farmer, not to the intermediary. Many times it's the intermediary who benefits much more than the farmer. The reward must go to the farmers. That's a very important part. So developing a very transparent, very fair, very just system to reward farmer. And when we do that, then the farmers know that we respect them, for them to do what we are asking them to do, they will bring about the transformation very quickly. They are the one who have to actually take into action the recommendations, and we must reward them. If we don't reward them, unfortunately, we'll be suffering even 10 years from now the same problem.
Good. Thank you very much, Dr. Lal. I wish you could stay on much longer. It's a clear answer. I think that's something that should be done about. You can stay on. Would love to. I would like to ask Dr. Makandaweri the same question. You talked about policy to support farmers, to set the stage information. Dr. Lal talked about carbon sequestration. Can you think of other mechanisms whereby, let's say, consumers or actors in the value chain end up supporting farmers to make long-term investments? Because economy has this tendency of short-term exploitation, while soil health maintenance is a long-term endeavor. So can you also think of some mechanisms? And after Richard, I would ask Umu the same question.
Well, as somebody who works in the policy space, let me say that, we need, I think, particularly our colleagues who are soil scientists, need to deeply engage policy analysts. Because one of the greatest challenges we continue to confront in Africa is the tendency to really simply focus on fertilizer subsidies, and maybe a little bit of seed subsidy to the exclusion of equally critical, investments, focusing on investments in areas like soil management. This, therefore, I think begs the question on how based do we really convince national governments that, these subsidies, which even exclude in terms of management, the private sector, are really detrimental to the long-term gains in sustaining productivity by national governments. So we need, I think, to generate that information and begin to define appropriate policy options. As we know, I think most of these, subsidies are really used as a tool for electioneering to mobilize the population to support governments. But how do we, convince national governments that indeed, this is not the route to take? And one way, I think, again, I would like to challenge our colleagues, both from IFDC and the international community, indeed, development partners who fund most of these programs, that it's critical that we really begin to look at the role of civil society organizations as well as central players in understanding the benefits in investing in soil health. Let them come to the table and let them also be trained on these, soil health benefits in soil health management and those other interventions, and indeed exert the necessary pressure on governments to make sure that they pay attention to this important area that is often neglected.
Omo?
Yes, thanks, Prem. I was thinking about the concepts that Dr. Lalo was discussing and looking at the questions from the audience as well. And I think one great mechanism that would be a big incentive for farmers would be land ownership. The right to own land, the right to farm land. That could be a big reward system, a big mechanism for to incentivize farmers to invest in soil health improvements, in land restoration. So I would think about something, a mechanism that is closer to farmers' incentives, such as land ownership. Thank you.